So this is Baruch Fleischman here with the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and it's time for us to get into what is it? Jewish astrology. So this is written by Yaakov Kronenberg, and we want to get into it right away and see what it is that we're going through. Now, actually, this is not a book, this chapter, or this section of this book, which is, I tell you, it has lots in it, actually a lot about astrology. That is, that how to understand the planets, what's going on between them, and etc., all these different kinds of things that affect us. It's about proving that astrology is Jewish. And what is the difference between Jewish astrology and non-Jewish astrology? And in the last piece, Rabbi Yaakov got into the idea that astrology was hijacked by people who made themselves. Everybody is fearsome in this world because life is dangerous and it doesn't come out good for anybody. So it's easy to manipulate people. And so what happened is that Avodah Zarah, or idolatry, was created out of astrology. So here's where we are now. This is beginning of chapter 9. And I'll keep it going as best I can. This is a big book. It's a little bit unwieldy. So it says, so up to now we see that there were two sects. One was called the founders of the ceremonies, and the other ones, those who draw down the powers. Okay, so there was a circus atmosphere about many of these things, and I know that the brothers hold that there was a lot of incest as well. And they performed ceremonies to draw down the astrological powers to earth at appropriate times, so that the planets would do the will of those worshippers and answer their questions. And these two evil sects were certainly idolatrous, and bowing down to strange gods may they be cursed, and those though that do like them. Now here we're listening to Rabbi Abraham Bar Chiya, middle ages of the medieval, there you go, rabbi in Spain. We can also see a hint here that maybe the Arabic astrologers of Spain at the time of Rabbi Abraham were doing these things too. This is how he knows those Arabic names. We also find a third sect. It's called Abba talisman, meaning the masters of the pictures. They would study the movements of the planets and investigated the order of their movements through different pictures in the sky, and they would pass through the place where the image they wanted in this world appeared to them. At that time, they saw the planet pass through that image in the constellation, which is in the north side or the south side. So apparently they had an image of the path of this constellation, and they were looking to see if some planet was passing through it. They would make an image like that image from different types of metals that were suitable for this. If the planet is one of the favorable planets, he increases the strength of that image. And if it is a destructive planet, he nullifies its powers. They know when to stop and when to increase the power of different things in the world. And there remain, even to our times, all sorts of images from the work of the wicked ones. So if you look around, you'll still see those things floating around. Let me push this up here a little bit. And realize how those things were made. These are the masters of the pictures. And they would make the images of the places that the planets pass through in different times, in order to increase the power of a beneficial planet and decrease the power of the destructive one. After them is the fourth group. So that, in other words, he's explaining their philosophy. After them is the fourth group, which knows the movements of the planets, on which day and at what hour it is beneficial to collect different herbs from all the herbs, go gather different seeds from all the seeds, to gather honey, beat the olives, to pick grapes and other fruits, to chop wood and collect it. They would know what was gathered on each day and what its nature was, and for what it was beneficial. Everything was stored with them, and when they were needed, they would prepare the different gatherings that were the power of one thing or another to reduce the power of something else. Now, let me stay with this and maybe go a little slower because we get lost in all these big words. It says, so while they were doing this, when they were gathering from the field or combining herbal formulas, they would whisper incantations and unclean names and the names of demons. This sect was called in Arabic Atzchav el-Hel. He says, meaning masters of the capture. This sect was also called in Arabic Atzchav el-Ashar. Now this is Rabbi Avraham Bar Chiya describing the idolatry of his days that were of his day, that he knew these names. He spoke Arabic. So he said, so this fourth group used to do what one called agricultural astrology. What is amazing is that there is a group today in Israel, which I have heard about, that has an organic form in which they grow organic food. I think it still exists, and originally it was based on the teaching of a German man, Rudolf Steiner. And they picked different kinds of fruit and vegetables at specific times, when it's best to pick the plants. And there was a big argument between the rabbis if you can give the hechsher to make it kosher, whether you can make it kosher. Why? What's the problem? Because even if they follow all the Jewish laws of Truma and Meiser and the rest of the agricultural laws, the question remains if you can buy for them, because maybe what they were doing is something similar to worshiping the planets. So you see that these things exist even today, even in science today. They are working on things like this in a certain way. I was reading that scientists today work on the idea of what is the right hour to give medicine. They work now on all different times to give different medicines in connection with the cycle of the person's body. And they found out that there are different ways to give medications that can work better. But this is very different to what the idolaters did, because even though these sciences don't believe much in God, they certainly don't believe in idols. They just trust and just try to improve science. So let's see what time we got, a little bit more. So those were the four groups. The four types of astrology which Rabbi Avraham mentions here and concludes that they are forbidden, because whether they work or don't, it's not proper for a Jew to get involved because it's involved with the idea of idol worship. And it's against the fundamental principle of Judaism, which is the belief that there is only one God who is in control of everything, and the planets are just agents without a will of their own. So these four branches can weaken one's fear of heaven, and it's forbidden as idolatry. And in the next paragraph, Rabbi Avraham is going to go deeper and say when all of those four types of people are mentioned in the book of Daniel, Daniel is a great book for people who are interested in seeing predictions. And one may be Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, and all of those kinds of predictors. But the most important and recommended thing is to read the prophets of thousands of years ago, because what they said, it happened to happen. There you read and see all the predictions which came true. It's amazing. It is not like a riddle or something like that. You can interpret it 1,000 ways. It's just happened as it had been said in its plain meaning. Like when Moses brought the Torah, the Jews are going to sin, mess up, and they're going to be exiled and travel from country to country. And then eventually they're going to come back to Israel. This is written clearly, and it happened, and few pay attention to that. And it is very difficult to predict the future, even 1 year from now and now, never mind thousands of years ahead. My astrologer friends tell me that even angels can't see into the future, so obviously people can't. And the more you try to look into the future, the harder it gets. If you were a good astrologer, you see what happens to a person now, and you could tell what will happen to him within a year. But it is harder to say what will happen in 2 years or 3. And then the astrologers become more general and less specific, for it is very hard to predict the distant future. But if you look at the books of the prophets, you see the predictions, it's amazing. And I recommend this to all astrologers to bring us some humility. And I think Rabbi Avraham recommends this too. In this letter and in another, and if the astrologer could see everything, there would be no need for the prophets. We need the prophets because they get the words from up above. They didn't get it from the images of the planets like we do. So we see things in a general way, and the further we look into the future, the harder it becomes. This is Baruch Fleischman, and this is the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. We've been listening to Yaakov Kronenberg, Jewish Astrology, the Cosmic Science.